to a Kids Life podcast. I'm Angela Lockwood, and thank you for joining me. Today, we are going to be looking at how we can help our kids get out the door on time, walk out the door with their lunch boxes, walk out the door with at least 2 shoes on, with their school uniform on. How do we help create calm during these morning routines and more getting out the door on time on the way to school so that we're not all stressed and starting out the day in these yelling matches or being upset with each other or forgetting things. It's such an important topic. I hear so many times, and I see with my work in schools, where kids turn up at school, they're either in the wrong uniform or they've forgotten their lunch and they've had to call mum or dad to come leave work to get their lunchbox to bring it to school. Or I've seen kids in tears when they've forgotten something or they've bought the wrong thing. It's stressful for the kids, and it's also stressful for the families. And believe it or not, something you may never have thought of, it's really stressful for the teachers too, because they have to help settle their kids so that they can feel very, not upset during the day because they've forgotten something. Now, I would love to say, as the podcast host here on A Kid's Life, that I have all the answers to every parenting woe. But I'm sorry, I do not have all the answers because I have 2 children myself, and I would love to say that I have everything perfect, running smoothly in my family. But do you know what? One of the most stressful things in my family is having the kids get out the door on time. And my kids are teenagers now. So I am so totally with you as a parent here, as much as the podcast host, as much as an occupational therapist who works with kids all the time. And I'm hearing parents, they're going, Ange, can you please help with some strategies of how we can get our kids ready in the morning without all the screaming matches or without having to drag our kids out of bed in the mornings? And today I want to address it by a really practical strategy that I know works. Doesn't work 100% of the time, but I do not know any strategy that works 100% of the time. But this, when we work through this strategy, you're going to go, aha, I can see how this applies. I can see how this is really important, and it doesn't need to be this big behavioral overhaul for our kids. It will help your kids. It will help you. It'll help the entire family unit to know what is expected. And that is using the supports of visuals or visual supports, however you want to say it. Because it can be really challenging for parents and kids, getting ready in the morning has a lot of different compounding factors. So for some kids, they don't want to go to school. That's a whole nother podcast episode. But they're not motivated to get out the door on time. They don't want to get to school anyway, so that they're more than happy to drag the things out in the morning. Some kids are motivated to get to school, but they've got things everywhere. They've got their uniforms aren't ready, or they don't have their lunchbox packed, or, they've got different things they want to do in the morning other than getting ready for school. Some kids will sleep in. Some kids will watch TV and they'll leave it right to the last minute, and they realize that the bus is coming and they have to run around the house all frantic. Now, what we know with some of these scenarios is it is starting our kids off in the morning in a heightened state. So their stress levels are already increasing and they haven't even really started the school day yet. What we want is for our kids to feel calm. We want our kids to feel organised and in control, so that when they get on the bus or when they get dropped off at school or they walk in the school gates, they are starting their day off on a very calm and very feeling like they've got today all sorted from a very calm base. Okay, what we don't want is our kids to be running through the gates or walking through the gates, feeling stressed, feeling out of control, because what we know is those heightened states don't get very many opportunities throughout the day for it to come back down to a state of sort of equilibrium. We know that the stresses can build up over the course of the day, and that's where we start to see at the end of the day, behaviors will increase. Our kids can be really tired, they can be really cranky, and you cop that when they get home from school, and that's not okay. we don't often think about it, do we, as parents, that actually how we start our day has such a big impact on how our day unfolds and how our day finishes. So this morning routine conversation, although I'm talking about how do you use visual supports to help, it is actually around setting up the framework for the entire day, the expectation of the entire day, and going, hey, we are not going to start stressed out, frantic, running around, in a way that we're heightened. We're going to do this day calmly. We're going to start it off, and we're going to be in a space where we can approach the day in any way and face things that pop up unexpectedly in a very calm way. And that really does all come back to and starts from the moment your child wakes up. In fact, it actually starts the night before. So it depends on what time they go to bed and how well that they sleep. But in the morning when they wake up, we are actually setting almost like the base for how the day is going to unfold. So by doing things like what we're going to talk about today, it's setting up a really calm base for your child, but also gives you a really good system and an element of predictability. I love predictability when it comes to routines and family life. So this is a great way to do it. So we're going to go through 5 things, okay? 5 reasons why these visuals can work, and 5 different ways that the visuals are present, or different ways you can use it. Because some kids like certain things, they like it presented in one way, whereas other kids don't. Now, before we go through these things from a child's perspective, I just want you to think about, imagine if I took off your to-do list and I didn't let you create a to-do list today, or I took off your calendar from you. So I took away your calendar and said, right, you've got to get through your workday today without your calendar. Okay. You have to rely 100% on your memory, or it might be you're going to go shopping, grocery shopping, and you can't take a list. All right. And you have to rely on your memory to be able to make sure that you've got everything in your household that you need. Okay. And you have to do it within a budget, and you can't forget anything. Now, straight away, don't you go, well, that's impossible. How in the world would I do that? One of the 3 might be, your thing that you rely on. If you're like me, you might rely on all 3 things. I rely on a shopping list, I rely on my to-do list, and I rely on my calendar. And as you can imagine, and you will learn more towards the end of this podcast episode today, I have a few of these things myself. Because that element of, I just don't want to think about so many things. And there is a concept called decision fatigue. And if we have to make all of these decisions so frequently, and there's about 20,000 decisions we have to make each and every day that are subconsciously made. And I write about this extensively in my first book, The Power of Conscious Choice. And we look at how do we make decisions. And what we do know is that the more decisions we have to make, the more exhausted we get. And what we end up doing is we end up making decisions that are either lazy, because we just don't have the ability or the energy or the attention to invest in making a good decision. Sometimes we'll deflect the decision onto somebody else. So we'll go, well, look, I'm exhausted. I don't know. I've made so many decisions today. You decide. And a perfect example of that is when our kids ask us, hey, what are we having for dinner tonight? And you go, I don't know. I haven't even thought of it. You decide. And what ends up happening is the outcome is often not what we want. So this decision fatigue is a real thing. It actually, really compounds on our stress levels, on our fatigue levels. And setting up a really good framework or some visual schedules around, or visual supports around how we start off our morning. Can't you feel that? You can see that, okay, we've got good system that minimizes our stress, that adds in an element of predictability, which sets our day up in a really calm way. So it's like a win-win for everybody. We start off calm, we have predictability, and we know that our brain's not having to make these decisions before the start of the really big cognitive load that our kids face at school. So every time we talk about this and you think, my kids don't need that, think, if you didn't have a calendar, to-do list, shopping list, checklist, all of those sort of things, if you weren't able to rely on those, what would your life be like? How much harder would your life be? And the same goes for our kids. And we don't often think about that our kids need these things as well. So let's have a run through what 5 different visual supports you could use in your family to help support your kids, okay? So the first one is creating a morning routine chart. Now you might already be using one of these, or you might have heard of them and not quite sure what they are. So it's basically a visual aid, and it outlines the steps your child needs to take to get ready for school. So we're just going to look for the morning routine. It can be as simple as a list of pictures or symbols that represent each task. So it could be a picture of someone washing their hands, a picture of somebody putting their clothes on. You could actually take a photo of your kids doing this. You print it, you put it somewhere on the wall, and what it's showing is, okay, first you've got to do this. So it might be something like go to the toilet, eat breakfast, get dressed, brush your teeth, get your bag, and then there's a picture of a bus. Okay, so it could be something as simple as that. You can create the chart with your child if you like, and they can help because that'll make it fun. And also you just customize it to whatever your family's routine is. You hang the chart in a really visible spot, and it might be like the bathroom or their bedroom or on the fridge or on the door, next to the door before they're going out, so they can do a quick check and go, yep, I've got everything I need. And what you do is you create these charts so that it reduces that cognitive loading for your child, and they can look and go, cool, yep, I've got everything I need, done, let's go. Okay, and you make it, I guess you don't want it sort of 10, 15 different pictures. You want it as small as possible so that, you know what it's like if you see 20 different things on your to-do list, it adds stress. If you see 3, you go, yes, I can do this, it's achievable. Same with the morning routine chart. And I have plenty of downloadables as well over at angelalockwood.com.au, and you can see free downloadables there around morning routine charts. The second thing is using a timer. Now, I have never really used an actual timer, so things like a time timer or on the microwave or putting it on your phone. Never really worked for my kids. However, I do have friends who have said that this is the best way for them to get their kids ready in the morning because their kids are super competitive and they love that element of motivation to beat the clock. So that's a fun way. You know your kids, so they'll either like it or they won't. Some of the things that I did do with my kids is I'll say, right, I'm going to count to 10 and let's see who can be the first one to get dressed. Or it might be, let's see if you can do it in 30 seconds. Okay, you ready? Go. And then I'll count down from 30, and this is when they were little and they will do it. So using a timer doesn't have to be an actual clock. You could count it down, but it does. It adds an element of a bit of fun and trying to beat the clock. So say as an example, if they have 5 minutes to brush their teeth, set the timer and see if they can finish before it goes off. That's something really simple. It can make the morning routine really fun and engaging, but it also can help your kids develop time management skills, because I know even in my work, if I've got all day to do something, I'll fill the whole day doing that one thing. But if I know I've only got half an hour, I'll get in, get it done, get focused, and I'm finished. So just another little side thing I know that parents I've worked with have used is using their favorite song as the end of the alarm. So rather, how you can change songs on your phone, rather than doing it that awful like clock sound, you can change the sound to their favorite song, so it becomes something even more motivating. So one visual support is around the morning routine chart that you can print out and put on the wall. There's also using a timer of some sort. The third one is looking at using a picture schedule. So picture schedules are, I guess, another type of visual aid that can help kids to understand what they need to do and when they need to do it. So they're particularly useful for kids who are not yet able to read, or they might have difficulty with taking on verbal instructions. So there might be kids who you can only tell them one thing for them to be able to recall that, or 2 things for them to be able to recall that. So creating sort of a picture schedule includes pictures or symbols, just like the morning routine chart. And it's things like putting on shoes, packing a backpack, saying goodbye. And you go through the schedule with your child each morning, encourage them to follow along. So it might be, okay, at this time you do this, at this time you do this, at this time you do this. And that's another, so it's very similar to the morning routine chart, but a picture schedule is very much looking at pairing the time with it as well. And also for older kids, you may not just need the picture, you could just do the word. So it could just be brush your teeth. It could be get ready, pack your bag. And so just depending on the age of your child, whether or not they need pictures, they might need picture and a word, or they might need just the word. The fourth one is around making a checklist. Now, I love a good checklist. In fact, I have to be disciplined not to create another checklist on top of my already checklist. You might be that way yourself. They can be a helpful tool, particularly for older kids who can read and write. And a checklist sort of outlines the steps they need, okay? And then they check it off as they go. They put a tick on it and they check it off. It can help kids feel a sense of accomplishment so that they've actually achieved something that day, if that's important for your child. And it can also help them stay focused and motivated. It might be literally like a tick the box. It could be a sticker that you put on. It could be they get to move the picture to another sort of side so that they can see, cool, I've got 5 things to do. Now I've done 3, I've only got 2 to go. And we know how good checklists are. It really does give us that sense of accomplishment that we've achieved something. Now, the last one we're going to look at is not a practical thing. It's actually a very emotive-based strategy, and that is using positive reinforcement. Now, everyone loves a good job. Well done. You've done a really good. You've focused really well today. Positive reinforcement is important, and remembering to use positive reinforcement will actually allow your child to have a greater feeling of success, but also it'll help them want to do it more. Now, it doesn't mean that you praise them for every single step all the time, because they'll get bored with that. But praising your child for their efforts and for following the morning routine actually does allow them to be able to want to do more. Now, what we're looking for is not the reliance on external reinforcement from you, but that internal sense, that is the goal. But for some kids to start them off, having a reward, like it could be a sticker or extra playtime, a high five, it doesn't have to be, going to go and buy them a new phone or anything like that. Just giving them that real sense of motivation that this is an important thing for us to be doing in our family, and even telling them that when you got yourself ready this morning, what it allowed us to do was to get out the door on time. That's really important for me, and it's really important for you. So good job, let's try it again tomorrow. And using these sort of systems in the morning relies on the child to become more independent, and because, a lot of parents will say to me, but Angie, aren't these external things that my child will become reliant on? At the beginning it will, but eventually they won't even need to look at them. They will know the routine well, that they won't even refer to them. And rather than pulling them down and thinking my child doesn't need them, there might be a morning where they wake up and they're super tired and they need it. Whereas if you took it away from them, then their brains are tired. They need to fall back on that. So don't take them away if you feel like your child's got it. You might need to change it up a little bit as they get older. Maybe not a picture anymore. Maybe it is the words. You can change it to suit what they need. Or later on, when they're teenagers, they have their own schedule. So that might be in their room that they create, which is the case for my kids. They know what the routine of the family is, but their individual routine and what's required, then that's up to them. So using these strategies hopefully will help start your day off, your child's day, your family day off on a really calm platform and a really calm foundation. And then that way, when they go into the school day where things do pop up unexpected, they're doing it in a way where they're not heightened, they're not stressed, and they know that they can face that. Now when they're doing their morning routines, we know that these strategies work for all areas of their life. So just start with the morning, see how it goes, try some of these things. And I'd love to know how it went for you. Which one did you choose, and what difference did it make? Did your kids not like some of them, but they loved another one? Because for most of us, we would be lost without these structures in our lives. So they're a really effective way to help your kids get ready in the school morning, okay? So with a little bit of effort and a little bit of creativity, you can make your morning routine fun and positive for you and your child. And obviously, like everything I say, get them involved. Have your child make them with you, get them invested in it, and before you know it, your mornings will be nice and calm and smooth, and everyone will be walking out the door. Oh, I'd love for that to happen every morning. But let's face it, this will allow success for you and your kids every single morning to be able to have a smooth start to the day. Thanks for joining me. There is all the tips and strategies over at angelalockwood.com.au, and of course here on A Kids Life podcast. If you loved this episode, please share it with other parents who might be having difficulties in this area or who you know would absolutely love the things that we talk about here on A Kids Life. Until next time, I'm Angela Lockwood. Stay safe and enjoy.